Hey everybody, Ryan Neff, the line of scrimmage. Another episode, 2-week break. Sorry about that. The launch of the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Got all those kinks worked out. We're coming down to the final 2 weeks, I think, of college football in the regular season. So, going to recap last week, which is week number 10, I believe. God, I can't believe we're almost through football season, as far as college football goes anyway. So, going to recap season 10, or season 10, week 10. Been a long day. And then we're going to get into week 11. Then I'm going to go through the college football playoff, try to cram all this in, and then I'll make my picks, some news and notes as well. So let's just jump right into it. My esteemed producer colleague, Angel Martinez, going to ask him if he wants to jump in at any time. He can, because I know how much he loves making college football picks. So we'll go to the first game from last week that was sort of important. Nothing really stood off or jumped off the page as far as last week's games go or went. Some of them really not too surprising, but the first one was Kansas State and Texas. Texas won the shootout 33-30. Really important game for Texas because Texas, they know what they need to do now with Oklahoma losing 2 in a row. If all comes to pass, then it'll be Texas and Oklahoma State for the Big 12 championship. And I think if Texas runs the table, they will have a good argument to try and plead their case to making the college football playoff. But they prevailed 33-30. Sort of was an ugly game there for a while. Texas had 3 turnovers. Kansas State had 2 turnovers. So it was, not the cleanest of games. Texas ran the ball 37 times for 230 yards, so they kind of controlled the clock. Will Howard, who has been on Broad Street South before with Angel, he went 26 of 42, 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Unfortunately, Kansas State, they only rushed the ball. They ran the ball 28 times, but it was only for 43 yards. And I sort of thought that was the difference in the game. But again, Texas with the 3 turnovers, it kind of kept Kansas State into the game. And, Kansas State did have 2 turnovers of their own. Kansas State was up. It was a back and forth kind of game. We're into November now, so these games are of even more importance. Texas, again, wins by a field goal, and they know what they have to do now. It's all laid out in front of them. Especially with Oklahoma losing 2 games. So Texas is the front runners to win the Big 12. The next game I had on on the schedule that was sort of important, kind of surprising to me. Just when you think Clemson is down, 4-4 in the year, they beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame, 31-23. Revenge game from last year. Notre Dame uncharacteristically 3 turnovers, Clemson 2 turnovers. Notre Dame, Sam Hartman, everybody thought he was going to be the missing piece to Notre Dame getting over the hump. He's sort of like really has tailed off. He was 13-30 for 146 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 costly picks. Clemson didn't do anything special. They had 2 turnovers of their own, but Clemson's defense sort of put the clamps down on Notre Dame. Clemson now 5-4, 3 games left. They probably will make a bowl because they only have to get to 6 wins. And I think the 3 games they have left on their schedule are winnable. They do have to play their rival South Carolina at the end of the year. Obviously, they've got to play North Carolina. I believe that's in a couple of weeks. That'll be a huge game. But again, just, when everybody started giving Dabo crap for the way he handled that caller, pile on Clemson, and now Clemson has probably shut the detractors up a little bit, quiet the noise for at least a week or 2. Hopefully they can finish strong. It's good for college football that, Clemson does well. I know they've tailed off the last couple of years, but, good to see them get that victory. Another game I had on here was Oklahoma State. The Bedlam game. This will be really the last one of importance. I think it's the second or third most played rivalry in the country. Oklahoma State prevailed 27-24. The thing that killed Oklahoma was the 3 turnovers. They turned it over 3 times. Oklahoma State only turned it over 1 time. Oklahoma has dominated this series. And believe me, Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State, since Oklahoma is jumping to the SEC, they would have loved nothing more than to send Oklahoma off with a loss. And they did. So they're going to revel in that fact because they're really not going to play each other anymore unless way on down the line it's going to be a non-conference game. It just won't have the same meaning. Oklahoma State, a lot of people had them for dead. When the season started, they're now 7-2. They need to keep winning to face, most likely Texas in the Big 12 championship game. And Oklahoma State would love nothing more than to knock off Texas too, because Texas is jumping to the SEC. So it would please Oklahoma State fans and that fan base and the faculty and the student body, when you can beat Texas and Oklahoma in the same year, to send them off with both losses. Yeah. So a little bit of a shock. Oklahoma has flirted with danger before all year long. Now back-to-back losses to Kansas and Oklahoma State. So we'll see how Oklahoma responds. Another game I had on here that was kind of a surprise, maybe not to most people, but Georgia beats Missouri 30-21. This was a nip and tuck game too. The thing that sort of killed Missouri was they turned it over twice, and Georgia didn't turn the ball over at all. Missouri, always a tough place to play, no matter what their record is. Very tough to play. Missouri's for real. They have a good season going. Georgia been in close games like this before all year long. Is it the Brock Bowers factor? I don't know. They didn't have any problem with Florida. Mizzou, a little bit of trouble, but Georgia on pace to make another, obviously, SEC championship game, and then hopefully that'll propel them to another college football playoff. And then the last game I have on here, and this was a real big shock to me. Air Force loses to Army 23-3. Did not see that coming. Thought Air Force would run all over them. Air Force with 6 turnovers, uncharacteristically. And Army ran it down their throat. They only passed the ball 9 times. Air Force didn't pass it all that much either. But Army ran it 51 times for 213 yards. So you couple that with 6 turnovers by Air Force. I can't even tell you the last time I saw a team in college turn the ball over six times. Air Force had something going. I really thought that they would run the table and perhaps make a New Year's Day bowl. That's not going to happen now. Bad loss for them. They can still salvage a good season, but we'll see what happens there. So that's sort of the recap of last week. And sorry I'm on my phone, but my laptop, unfortunately, which is not even a year old, took a dump, and I have to get it to get it serviced. So hopefully they can figure out what the gremlins are, because one day it worked. I closed it up. I sat it on my counter, and then the next night I was hopping on a Tony Bruno Sports Network, Martinez and Company, and I flipped it open, and there was nothing. Don't know if it's the charger. Don't know if it's a bad battery. I don't know. But I have no luck with electronics. Me and electronics is like, oil and water. So we're going to get into week number 11 of the college football season. We're going to try and break down the top 25 for you. And then after that, I will go through the college football playoff, which was just announced. There were tonight, the second edition of it. There's no changes at the top. There's no surprise there. I'll sort of break down the top 5, the Power 5 conferences, or where I think they're probably going to be headed, their remaining schedule. And then obviously I will try and make my picks if I can. So this week, so we have number 25 Air Force at Hawaii. I don't know how Air Force will respond. It's their first loss of the season last week to Army, as I had mentioned. Going all the way to Hawaii. Hawaii is sort of a tough place to play sometimes with the time difference, and you don't know how Air Force will respond. They can't play any worse than they did last week. Hawaii, sort of a middle of the tier team this year, nothing spectacular, nothing special. I think Air Force will probably run all over Hawaii. I think the defense will probably step up a little bit, probably closer than what the experts thinks. But I can't see Air Force losing 2 in a row after that performance last week. So I will take the Air Force Falcons over the Hawaii Rainbows this week. So Air Force wins the game. Next game on the slate, top 25 wise, we have Tulsa at number 24, Tulane. Tulane putting together another fantastic season. They are 8-1 in the season. Tulsa taking a little bit of a step back this year. Maybe better than they were. They are not. Tulane obviously putting together another special type season. I don't think Tulsa has the horses. I think Tulane will just keep doing what they're doing. They're well balanced on offense. They have a solid defense. They're, the class of their conference. Tulsa, you really don't know what you're going to get week to week with Tulsa. Sometimes they play well, and then the next week they put together a stinker. So there's no way in hell Tulsa will be able to hang with them. I think Tulane will blow them out. Then we have Baylor at 23, Kansas State. Like I said, and here's another one. Kansas State coming off the heartbreak against Texas. Kansas State now sits 6-3. Baylor just having a season probably to forget. I thought Baylor would be a little bit better than they were this year. They're not. Kansas State still has a hell of a football team. You play Texas like that, it'll be interesting to see how they respond, especially in the first half. It's usually where it's a killer for a team to try and get up after that emotional loss. But Baylor I don't think they have the horses. I think Baylor will probably hang around for a half, but then I think Kansas State will pull away in the second half. And pardon me, you do 3 hours of shows. I'm trying to open up my water so I can have myself a refreshingly tasty beverage. So, talk amongst yourselves, and I can't get it open because I'm predominantly right-handed. So we're going to put the water down, and I will get back to my picks. So Kansas State pulls away in the second half. Then we have 22 Oklahoma State at Central Florida. Oklahoma State can't get too full of themselves because they beat their rival Oklahoma. Again, Oklahoma State, if they can win out the rest of the year and Texas wins out the rest of the year, then it's going to be Texas against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. Again, UCF, a tough place to play. UCF, not having the season that they wanted. They're still a decent football team. They don't stink by any stretch of the imagination. I think Oklahoma State, after the slow start that they had to the year, they're finally putting it all together. They're finally rolling in all cylinders. Again, away after an emotional win, you want to avoid the letdown. That's what you have to worry about in games like this. But I think in the end, Oklahoma State again. UCLF will probably hang around for a quarter and a half. I think Oklahoma State just has it on both sides of the ball. They just have too much. So I believe Oklahoma State will take out Central Florida. They pull away in the second half. Then we have Texas Tech at number 21, Kansas. Kansas having another good year by Kansas standards as far as the football program goes. Texas Tech, again, Big 12, middle of the pack kind of team. Kansas at home, different beast when they're at home. They beat Oklahoma. a week and a half ago. Texas Tech, you never know what you're going to get with them week to week. I've seen them play opponents tough that they're not supposed to play tough, and I've seen them put together, a crap ass stinker. So just Kansas again, too much on both sides of the ball. They'll wear Texas Tech down again. This is another, you were talking conference games now, so I'm sure Texas Tech will be up. They're tired of hearing about sure they've heard about Kansas. They'll hear about Kansas all week. They'll play Kansas tough, but I think again this will be another one of those types of games where Kansas pulls away in the second half. So I think that Kansas will win that game. Arizona State at number 19, UCLA. UCLA lost to Arizona, but I tell you what, that Arizona team who is now 6-3, and they're tough team. They played everybody tough, and UCLA unfortunately found that out last week when they traveled to Arizona. So Arizona State, they're on down times right now, but I think they have the program going in the right direction. But UCLA at home, I don't see Arizona State hanging for too long. I think UCLA will probably, Arizona State, again, Pac-12 conference game. Arizona State will probably hang around for a quarter, but I think UCLA, pulls away in the end. So then we have, let's see, we've got Stanford at number 16, Oregon State. Oregon State quietly putting together another good season. Stanford, I don't know where that program's headed, what they're about. It's the last 3 or 4 years, ever since McCaffrey left, they've been having a hard time of it. So I hope they can get that program steered in the right direction. I don't see it for a while yet anyway. Oregon State, like I said, tough defense. They, bludgeon you to death. They wear you down. They don't do anything spectacular on offense. Well balanced. But again, Oregon State, Corvallis, at home, Pac-12 game. This is the last couple of games. This is the last couple of weeks as the Pac-12, Pac-14, or whatever they call themselves now, or whatever they're going to call themselves after this year. This is it. This is the finality of it. So Oregon State at home blows Arizona State out. And now I will take a refreshingly sip of my beverage. Nothing like good agua. Then we have number 14, LSU at my Florida Gators. Florida stinks. Billy Napier is not the guy. He's heard all kinds of noise this week in reference to the coaching job he's doing. It's one thing to be at Louisiana Tech or Louisiana, wherever the hell they found him, and he had great success there. The SEC is a completely different beast. LSU hung with Alabama for a while, but, and people are giving Brian Kelly crap because of LSU this year, because they made it to the SEC championship game last year, because they beat Alabama. They expected this season to be like, oh my God, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. No, it's the SEC. Florida will hang because they'll get up for the game, but then I think LSU just pulls away. It'll be closer than what you think, just because it's sort of like a mini rivalry game in the SEC. But Florida you lose to Arkansas at home. That's pathetic. That's horrendous. So LSU wins. And we have Virginia at number 13, Louisville. This will be a blowout. Louisville at home. Virginia started off bad, and they've continued to be bad. Louisville's on a collision course in the ACC to face Florida State in the ACC title game. And the way Florida State's looked in a couple of games this year, yeah, We'll see. But Louisville's not going to have any trouble with Virginia. Louisville knows what it has to do. They want that date with Florida State in the ACC championship game. Louisville takes business like big time and beats the hell out of Virginia. Let's see. We've got West Virginia at number 9, Oklahoma. West Virginia, again, not a bad team, not a good team. They're like somewhere in between. I have to see how Oklahoma responds. Losing 2 in a row now. They're not going to be playing for a Big 12 championship. Oklahoma State owns the tiebreaker over them. So you would expect them to beat West Virginia at home, right? Right? You would think. West Virginia will probably give them a tussle. Oklahoma struggled in a couple of games this year where they shouldn't have. Struggled against UCF. Struggled against SMU. My brain is telling me West Virginia. But, traditionalist in me is saying Oklahoma. I'll say Oklahoma wins this game, but I say they eke it out. I think West Virginia plays them tough for all 4 quarters. But I think somehow, some way, Oklahoma gets the victory. Then you have Alabama, now ranked 8th at Kentucky. Kentucky having a decent season again. Again, you sort of like that run-of-the-mill 8-4, 7-5, like throwing a 9-3 every once in a while. But look, Alabama has the inside track to the SEC championship game in the West, and they would love nothing more than to potentially play Georgia in the SEC championship game. And I hate to say this, but Alabama still has a shot to make the college football playoff. They can run a table, make it to the SEC championship game. You beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. There's no way in hell the committee is going to leave them out. This will be close, just because I don't trust Alabama's defense at all. I think Nick Saban now knows what he has team-wise. He knows what the identity is. This isn't the greatest defenses that he's ever had. The offense is starting to click, though. And so I think he's going to tailor all that around the athletes that he has. That is, try to run the ball effectively. Let Milroe does what he wants to do. And then just defense, just try and hold on. But Alabama will win this. So it'll be close for a half, but then Alabama will pull away in the second half. And we have number 7, Texas at TCU. Look, Texas knows what it needs to do now. If Texas runs the table, finishes with 1 loss, and wins the Big 12 championship game, they will have a strong case to make the college football playoff. Because I said over on the Tony Bruno Sports Network on Martinez and Company, 6 to 8 p.m., by the way, Monday through Friday. The Michigan-Ohio State game at the end of the year, Thanksgiving weekend, is a de facto college football playoff game to get in to the college football playoff. Whoever wins that and propels themselves to a Big Ten championship, they're going to get in, and the other one's going to be left out. But Texas, they can run a table, beat Oklahoma State in a college or in the Big 12 championship game. They are going to make a strong case because they beat Alabama. So we'll see what happens. Texas is going to run all over TCU. TCU doesn't stand a chance. And like I said before, TCU is not the same as they were last year. So, yeah, Texas runs away with it. Then we have Miami at number 4, Florida State. Miami, we really don't know what they are, do we? Or we sort of know what they are. They're sort of like that, they're kind of okay, but they're kind of not. They're sort of like stuck in the middle there. Now, I see a lot of pundits saying that Miami is going to hang tough with them just because of the rivalry. Now, it hasn't been much of a rivalry over the last, 15 years, 20 years, like the way it used to be. I think Miami will hang for a half just because they're get up for their rival. FSU struggle with Pitt. Maybe that was another wake-up call for Florida State. I don't know. But I think Florida State, they have too much talent on both sides of the ball to lose to Miami at home. Florida State will win, and I think they'll win handily. Let's see. We have number 18, Utah, at number 5, Washington. Look, Washington needs what they. If you take a look at Washington's schedule the rest of the way, it's brutal these last 3 games, and Utah is going to be tough. I mean, Washington State had trouble with USC on the road last week, and they haven't really looked good the last 2 or 3 weeks. And Utah's tough. Utah's invigorated. They beat the hell out of Arizona State last week. Now they have to go to Seattle, to Washington. Then Washington's knocking on the doorstep. Washington can beat Utah. And FSU struggles with Miami. Then I think the committee might have to say, you know what? We need to put Washington in that 4 spot. Utah is not going to be easy for them. Utah really hasn't faced an offense like this. Period. All year long. I think Utah comes to play, though. Utah is going to be up for the challenge. Do I think they win? Probably not. But it is going to be a real close game. I think this one goes into the 4th quarter probably tied. Whoever has the ball last is going to win the football game. I think Washington will get that final opportunity. And I think Washington wins and beats Utah and stays undefeated. A couple other games that I think I missed. Yes. Number 20, USC, at number 6, Oregon. USC's defense pathetic. They got rid of their defensive coordinator because that's just what you do when your defense stinks. You get rid of your defense. And they were bad. They're bad. They're just straight up bad. Oregon, they're sitting there in the college football playoff rankings at 6th. They are the best one-loss team in the country, although people would probably argue Texas, Alabama. You can't trust USC's defense. They're god awful. They're just terrible. And then you have to go into Eugene to play Oregon. USC is going to get blown off the field. Now, USC will probably put up some points, but they can't stop anybody. Oregon will probably run away with this. So I say Oregon will win. Oregon will win handily in the second half. Couple others that I'm looking at here that I think I missed. Oh, number 17, Tennessee, at number 12, Mizzou. Both teams quietly putting together a decent season. These teams sort of mirror each other, to be quite honest with you. I don't think anybody really has the advantage. This is a pick'em game. I will say Mizzou at home, just because they're at home. They play tough at home. They know what they are. Tennessee on the road. They played Florida on the road in the swamp and they got waxed. So this is going to be a close game throughout. Good SEC battle. Real good SEC battle. Tune in. But I say in the end, Mizzou ekes one out by a field goal. Looking at some of the others. Oh, we've got number 2, Michigan, at number 11, Penn State. With everything surrounding Michigan. They might use it as a rallying cry. It's us against the world, man. Penn State will be rocking. I'm sure it'll be rocking. Penn State would love nothing more than to knock Michigan potentially college football playoff race. But I've seen Penn State's defense, I've seen Penn State's offense up against great defense, and they do not look good. Michigan is the mirror image of what Ohio State is. I think Michigan goes into Penn State. Do I think Penn State will compete? Absolutely. But I think Michigan prevails, keeps their undefeated season alive. And then we have number 10 Ole Miss at number 2 Georgia. Georgia better watch the hell out, because Ole Miss still has an outside shot to make an SEC championship game. Now, Alabama still holds the tiebreaker over them because Alabama beat them head to head. But let's say Alabama slips up against Kentucky or Auburn, and Ole Miss only finishes with one loss in the conference. Then Ole Miss would go to the SEC championship game. Georgia better be careful, real careful, because Ole Miss is going to come to play. But I think UGA still has too much on both sides of the ball. Ole Miss will be game, but Georgia prevails just like they did against Missouri. And then the final one, we had number 1 Ohio State at home against Michigan State. We know the debacle that Michigan State is right now. Ohio State's going to just tattoo the hell out of them because Ohio State struggled with Rutgers last week, but Rutgers is a tough team, real tough team, especially at home. But Michigan State, they just want to get the season over with. Ohio State's going to beat the hell out of them. So there you have it. Week 11. Jesus God, week 11. I can't. College football and the NFL goes by so damn fast. It's not even funny. So we talked about the college football playoff a little bit. You know, they came out with the rankings again, and of course, nothing changed. It's number 1 Ohio State, number 2 Georgia, number 3 Michigan, number 4 Florida State. Washington sits 5th, and Oregon 6th sits. So, but if we take a look at the schedules for these teams the rest of the way, Ohio State is home against Michigan State. Just like I said, they're going to beat the hell out of them. Then they're home against Minnesota. Minnesota can't score. And then they got the game against Michigan, which, like I said, will be the de facto playoff to get into the playoff. Like I said, Michigan State and Minnesota, I expect them to win those comfortably, and then it all comes down to Michigan. Georgia better watch out. They host Ole Miss, then they're at Tennessee, and Tennessee will have revenge on their minds, and then they finish up with the traditional game against Georgia Tech. If they can get by Ole Miss, they get by Tennessee, they beat Georgia Tech, then they'll be fine. But like I said, they better watch out with Ole Miss, and they can't take Tennessee lightly either. So Michigan, they have to go to Penn State, which is not going to be easy. They have to go to Maryland, and Maryland they've imploded. Their season started off so promising for the Terrapins, and now they're reverting back to ugly uniforms and everything else. Michigan will win that easily, and then you have the game against Ohio State. And when you look at Florida State, excuse me while I take a sip of my refreshing beverage. Florida State has Miami at home, which they'll win. Then they're home against North Alabama. And then they're at, the traditional Florida State-Florida game, and they should beat the Gators because the Gators. Did I mention that my Gators stink? I'll tell you what, Washington has it tough, and they're sitting 5th in the college football playoff. They're home against Utah, which is not going to be easy. Then they have to go to Oregon State, which is not easy. And then it's the final Apple Cup between Washington and Washington State. And that's at home. And that won't be easy because Washington State would love nothing better than to beat the hell out of Washington in the final Apple Cup to send them off wherever they're going to go. And then when you look at Oregon, they're home against USC, which they should win. They're at Arizona State, which is, and then they're home against Oregon State, the Civil War, and that'll be a hell of a game too. And then if we go deeper into the college football playoff, the rankings this week, and you have Texas, they're home against TCU, they're at Iowa State, and then they're home against Texas Tech. I fully expect them to win all those games. Then when you go to Alabama, they're at Kentucky, then they're home against Tennessee, Chattanooga. And then they're at Auburn, obviously, in the Iron Bowl. So I'm telling you, all hell is going to break loose. And then when we get to the conferences for the championships, in the ACC, Florida State and Louisville are on a collision course. I fully expect that to be the ACC championship game. The Big 12, it's looking like it'll be Texas and Oklahoma State. The Big 10, Michigan, Ohio State winner, probably against Iowa. And again, Iowa can't score, but their defense is still solid. And believe me, whoever they potentially play in the Big 10 championship, whether it might be Michigan or Ohio State, and Iowa makes it, they would love nothing more than to knock either Michigan or Ohio State out of a Big 10 title. In the Pac-12, it's looking like a Washington-Oregon rematch, and then in the SEC right now, it's looking at like Georgia seats. So we have the last 3 weeks of the season, then we have the conference championships. So everything you know right now about the college football playoff, put it out of your mind because, like I said, all hell is going to break loose in the next 3 weeks. But I fully expect Florida State to win the ACC. I'll tell you right now, I fully expect Texas to win the Big 12. Michigan or Ohio State will win the Big 10. I will say in the Pac-12 championship, if it's Washington against Oregon, I think Oregon will beat them the second time around. And then Georgia, Bama, it would be a pick'em game. So there you have that as far as bringing you up to date on everything. Some news and notes, and I'm going to see if my producer, my esteemed colleague Angel, will want to jump in here. Mr. Martinez, if you can switch over. If not, that's fine too. This whole spiel with Michigan, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse because now you have people from other programs like Purdue, and I think it was Wisconsin, I think it was Rutgers, sharing information, and the jury is still out on what will happen. But I think it would be stupid and idiotic if the Big Ten and the NCAA both say, "Yeah, Michigan, just go ahead, just play the season," and if you win the national title, just to let you know that along down the line when we complete our investigation, if we find out you did X, Y, and Z wrong and the coaches knew and everybody knew about it, we're going to yank your national title away and all those wins. Believe me, the NCAA and Michigan will want to resolve this as soon as they possibly can. I don't think Michigan's going to go unscathed from now until Christmas without any sort of sanctions. I mean, if the NCAA or the Big Ten really want to send a message, just suspend Harbaugh for the rest of the year. But because of the Big Ten bylaws, there's only so much that the Big Ten commissioner can do. And the NCAA will probably drag their feet. And again, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it up until the game. The NCAA and the College Football Playoff Committee are praying and hoping that Ohio State beats Michigan the weekend of Thanksgiving, because that will essentially knock Michigan out of the college football playoff period. They won't be playing for a Big Ten title, and they won't be playing for a college football title. If this were next year, than they would be. But this is this year. And even if the NCAA tries to do something now, or the Big Ten commissioner tries to do something now, then Michigan and their legal team, and I'm sure the AD and the president will take some sort of legal action to push back. And then it'll be a tug of war. But this is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse because we're just started with this. So I would like to see them come to a resolution as quickly as they can because, I mean, like you imagine your team winning a conference championship, then playing for the college football national title, and your team wins, and you're giddy, and we won the national title, and then like 4 months later, the NCAA comes back and says, "Yeah, no, you didn't. You really didn't. So we're gonna yank all those wins away, and we're gonna yank that national title away." So really, it's like it's a potpourri of crap. What's going on right now in college football, as far as Michigan goes, and of course Mel Tucker, the whole situation in Michigan State, I'm sure Michigan State fans are loving what's going on in Michigan. So stay tuned because, like I said, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. So we might have an abbreviated version of the show today. Like I said, I didn't expect to blow through all that in 45 minutes. So I was going to try and make my picks now, but I think I'll wait till Friday on Martinez and Company on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. I'm not going to make them now. I figured I would wait till Friday. So, but I am 36 and 34 on the year. It's not stellar, but I'm not losing. So, yeah, I think I'll wait till Friday to make my picks. I still have to study a little bit more because we're down in the nitty gritty now. Like I said, the last 2 weeks. So I would like to thank my esteemed producer and colleague, Angel Martinez, behind the scenes right now. Kudos to him. Kudos to Deb, who's normally behind the scenes. So, yeah, abbreviated version. And if you want to tune in on the Tony Bruno Sports Network on the other side, Martinez and Company on Friday, I will make my picks then and I will throw those out. So, Angel, I'm going to end this early. I hope everybody enjoys the games. I hope everybody enjoys the week. And you all have a good weekend.